Around this horseshoe, as a member of the Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee, we tackled a lot of controversial topics. We're talking about jails, pot, we're talking about police, we're talking about criminal justice reform, our prison population, all kinds of different things that you might not think are the number one issues around the dinner table, but are important topics. And I know when the Speaker of the House appointed me to this committee, my first thing was, are you sure you want me to be on criminal justice and public safety? But I'm actually really glad that I've been a part of these conversations because I've been able to inject sort of a different perspective. I don't come from a criminal justice background, and so I get to look at things from very much a third-party perspective, much like the jails. And this is a situation you've probably seen a little bit in the news about. The governor self-created the initial kind of crisis where he didn't do his constitutional job in simply appointing members to the Board of Corrections, which oversaw the jails. And by him not appointing to the Board of Corrections, then we had to say, okay, we need some administrative body and to basically oversee the distribution of these funds and the oversight of the jails. And so we had to weigh all these options. We had to bring together stakeholders, whether it be sheriffs all across the state, the Sheriff's Association, municipal leaders, the Municipal Association, county commissioners, all kinds of stakeholders where we had multiple work sessions, multiple conversations with these stakeholders, literally over months and months and months having these conversations. I was sick about jails after a while. It was a lot of conversations, and it didn't look like we were arriving at a conclusion. It looked like Republicans were in the corner of just sending it back to the responsibility to the counties, which could have raised property taxes if that wasn't handled appropriately. And then we had a lot of Democrats that either wanted a state takeover or wanted to continue the Board of Corrections, which that has had a lot of flaws moving forward. So to me, there was a happy medium between all of those things. And so basically myself, Representative Nadeau, Representative Long, who was the Republican lead on the committee, got together, locked ourselves in a room and said, hey, look, what can we do to make this work? So look at the facts, see through all this paperwork, all the conversations with all these stakeholders, what is the best path forward? I thought we arrived at that. We actually passed something with that compromise. And not everybody was on board, but we got just about everybody. And I thought that was a great thing to see that bipartisanship at the end of it. And basically, it has protections for taxpayers. Basically, we shifted some of the responsibility back to the counties and the county sheriffs with major stipulations that if there's any state money attached to something, that we need to have accountability, going line by line, taking this pen and going line by line. So every year, the sheriffs, the municipal and county leaders have to come before us around this committee and say, how are you spending that money? And we also stipulated that if you're spending state money, more of it needs to go to what's called community corrections. And what that means is ways to reduce recidivism, this vicious cycle of perpetuating this thing of going into this criminal justice system for minor offenses. Is there a way to reduce that? And community corrections tends to tackle those things. It's great programs that can be implemented in the jails, and so that money is really important. So we wanted to stipulate that was a value that we all shared. There was a number of other things, but I think that the jail compromise was the best path forward. We'll see moving forward how successful that ends up being. Pot, we talked about pot. Obviously that's going to be a number one issue, the legalization of marijuana in the 2016 referendum. As a millennial, you would think I'd be all for marijuana. I'm inching towards that, but it's one of those things where, much like President Obama said, evolving, I've totally been supportive of medicinal marijuana, but I'm quite not there to say, you know what, let's endorse smoking something else. It's like, can't you find something else fun to do? But recognizing that there are people out there that do support that, I want to give people an option to vote for something that actually was a meaningful proposal. So we basically took Representative Russell's and Representative Diane's and some of the stakeholders that were doing the referendums and said, how can we mesh it all together in a proposal that at least makes a lot more sense than what you're currently wanting to give voters? So I really led the charge on the committee to say, hey, look, we need to make sure municipalities are operating at the assumption that pot dispensaries are not allowed in their community unless they want it. So that was a major step forward in the referendum. Ultimately, that did not end up in the referendum that's going to the people, but those sorts of conversations were really important. We brought both of those sides together around this committee. That wouldn't have happened unless we had our fingerprints on it. Some of the other things, I co-sponsored a bill with Senator Haskell that prevents the shackling of pregnant prisoners. You know, criminal justice reform, again, is really important. We have to treat people like people at the end of the day, and a number of other great topics. But at the end of the day, I've been so thankful to be on this committee and work with great people on both sides of the aisle to tackle the issues regarding criminal justice and public safety.